Well, hello there, and welcome back to my beginner series, or if you're your first time here, just welcome. As always, if you see something you like or dislike, hey, leave a comment down in the section, man. I'll read absolutely everything, respond, love to have a conversation with you. Um, and if you plan on sticking around, seeing a few more of these, see where I get going with everything, I would not turn down any subscribers. But hey, with that, let's get cracking on things. And today, well, today was one of those days. Okay, so I need a lot of the netherwood in order to finish things down in the zombie research lab. Okay, so I went and I learned how to farm my wood. Okay, I found out that I need the nether rack that's got the green or the red on it. It's called nylium. And you've got your crimson nylium and your warp nylium. Now, crimson nylium needs red mushrooms. If we can get, I just threw one down. Anyway, one will pop up here eventually. A bigger area, there we go. Right, so I can get more that way. And the green ones, same thing. I can go about it until I get myself a couple of green ones. And if I bone meal them on their respective colored blocks that they're supposed to sit on, they grow into trees. Okay? And that's all fine and dandy. Now, I was going about my business, and I was over here just farming away the old school Minecraft way, growing a thing, harvesting it, converted over my manual tree farm so that I had a nice little place to work, could catch all of the blocks for me. Everything's going fantastic until I ran out of red fungus, which is what I was farming. And I come over, I start doing this, and I actually had a bigger platform for this earlier. And it was working a little better, but it still was taking way too long to get the fungus that I need. So I sat down and thought about it, and I was like, you know what? There's got to be a redstone solution for this. And of course there is, which is going to take us over to my creative world, where I have gone too far and accomplished nothing today. Well, depending on your definition of nothing. So with that, let's hop on over to my creative world, where I can show you what my several solutions to this dumb problem is. Hey, and welcome back over to my creative world once again. You can see in the background, I've got a whole bunch of stuff going on that definitely wasn't here the last time we were in here. Off to the side behind that machine, you can see our little bee farm. You can see our little tree farm that we've set up. A few odds and ends that I've got going on for other stuff that I've played with over time. But let's see. No, let's set the time today. All right. Better lighting, better videos. Um, I am re-recording this because I keep screwing up my recording software. But anyway, you can see behind me a whole bunch of different machines, and I'm going to walk you through my creative process on this. Ultimately, we're going to come back to this guy. By far the simplest and actually fastest method of accomplishing getting the fungus that I want. The only difference between getting the green trees and the red trees, which would be crimson and warped, is changing this floor out from the crimson nylium block, which is what is here right now, over to the warped nylium block, which is what I have on this machine. Okay? But I will tell you right now, this episode is all redstone and all in my creative world here, other than that intro, because I literally spent a whole day trying to figure some stuff out. Okay, now, one of the things with redstone, when you start to get into more complicated things that you kind of need to know about, is something called a clock. And we just saw this one fire off. This one right here is called an etho hopper clock. It was designed by a Minecraft player a long time ago, and it is a good old slow and steady clock, and it'll just pulse back and forth. And the way that it works is you have two hoppers facing into each other, and each of them is being looked at by a comparator, which is sending out a redstone signal into this block, which is powering this redstone dust here, which powers a piston. But you can see they're both powered at the same time. So what's happening is I've got a stack of items inside of the system, and they're going back and forth between each other. Now, right now, this redstone block is powering this hopper. So this hopper can no longer push this way. And that means that it no longer sends out any signal at all. All right. So, well, once it's empty, as soon as it starts filling up, it is automatically sending out a signal. But it loses signal for just a moment, which allows the other piston to overcome the one on the other side, and it goes back and forth. Okay, so powering a hopper causes it to lock and not send items through. Okay, so this is where my brain originally started, and we'll get to it later with some of this stuff here. This is another way to do it. In fact, we'll just take him off. This is an observer, and when I place another observer facing into him, there we go. He sees this one get placed. And that means that something updated here, which means he fires off a signal. Now, this one being here when he fires off the signal sees that he did a thing, and he fires off a signal. And it goes back and forth, back and forth. And you can see that I have things going back and forth rather quickly here. And it's causing a thing. So if I was to put down, let's just put down a couple of, oh, wait, I think it has to, no. There we go. I can come off to the side of it if I use a repeater. But it creates this noisy little machine that moves blocks. And you can see that they're basically moving opposite of each other. Okay? And that will happen a lot. So we'll turn him off because he's noisy. But anyway, so that's clocks. They're the heart of your machine. They're like an engine of sorts in Minecraft. Okay, so I took this etho hopper clock, and I was reading Nylium can have water flow over it, clear everything off of it, and it's not going to change into netherrack. Some blocks, if you run water over them long enough, will break down and they will no longer be what they are. Examples would be some of your dirt variants with like grass on top of them. I think mycelium, it's something that you find on a mushroom island, can do the same thing. But anyway, so we'll turn this on and we'll see what it's doing. So I've got it timed so that I'm shooting bone meal from the bottom up into this, and my water streams are timed so it's coming over here into my collection system that I set up, which is a little more complicated than what I've shown you at this point. It's got an item filter on it. Okay, and let's enjoy the mechanical sound of this. That sounds like a machine. Oh, I love it. So what's happening is I'm using this etho hopper clock to power the different parts of my machine. So off of this side, I've got redstone coming down into a repeater, going into a piston, which is raising and lowering this bit of sand right here. And sand has gravity. When you just place it without something below it, it'll fall straight down. Okay, so it's starting to do that, and it's getting caught fast enough. This observer only sees it happen the one time, and this redstone going across it then turns these dispensers on, which have water buckets in them, and it releases water streams, which mow our lawn and push our items into here. Now, at the same time, on the other side of the clock, I've got this piece of redstone dust, which will turn off for just that moment and create a pulse right here, which goes into my dispenser full of bone meal, that then fires off and grows my stuff on top of my nylium up there. And with this one, this etho hopper clock only has 3 items in it. And because of that, the timing worked out really well to where everything just works sequentially, so I didn't have to put in extra timing stuff, which we'll talk about over there. All right, so it functions, it's fantastic. Everything that I don't want is going into this composter, which is then reclaiming some of the bone meal I put into the system. Okay, so in order to sort these items, and I'm going to do this at a much larger scale on the survival world at some point. I just don't have the resources to, one, build it. As you can see, there's a lot of iron involved. But two, I don't have a large enough variety that I'm having trouble finding things yet. I'm being really good about my barrels up in my storage room and all that. But this works really easily. So we have a comparator that's looking into this hopper here. So this line's bringing all my stuff across, and it can go as long as I want. This has the item filtration system in it. So I made these sandstone blocks here. I renamed them on an anvil so that they are unique. Nothing in the game that exists naturally will ever be these items. So I put them in here, and they count for 4 of 45 items in the system. Once this goes up to a total of 46, it will then create more redstone signal. And you can actually see it's firing off here occasionally when something comes through. There we go, that lit up. And once it lights up, it comes down and it powers the block that it's on top of, which then powers our repeater pointed into the block in front of it, which powers that block right there. And that causes our redstone torch to turn off. When you power a redstone torch, it turns it off. Okay? And when it's on, it provides power into this block here, which locks this hopper, right? And this hopper's empty. So once this goes, it allows this hopper to take an item from up here, and it pushes it down the hopper line. Okay? So it's not insanely complicated, but it is several steps in the same little area to accomplish the singular goal of making sure that I only get the warped fungus I'm looking for in that chest. Okay? So this, I put it together and I was like, oh, I love this thing. This is fantastic. It's amazing. And it's one of the faster farms here. It's much faster than that. And it's a lot faster than that guy over there. That guy is by far the fastest, but it is completely manual. You can see I've got my speed time for testing purposes set really fast in here. So my little bamboo Gen 1 collection system over there is just going ballistic. But anyway, so we've got that going on. Now, I was like, this is supposed to be a beginner series. That's like 4 circuits in the same thing, kind of all just going at it, Which, hey, I personally have no problem with that. But that is not beginners, and that is not the purpose of what we're doing. So I then came over here. I was like, okay, I can make something simpler. So we have an observer here in the middle that will see when things grow or when our water flow changes. As water moves, and you'll see it once I turn this on, it moves in stages. And every time this thing sees a stage update, it's going to fire off a signal through the system. Now, off to one side, it's controlling my dispensers. And off on the other side, if we follow the line down, it is going and powering my dispenser full of bone meal, which is fine and dandy. Now, once I get it going, you'll see I've got it timed so that I grow and then I mow. I grow and then I mow. And it does this over and over again. It's a lot quieter than that machine, so that's a big benefit for a lot of people. And over here, I had to time it because everything's running off of just this one guy doing his thing here, so that this would activate at just the right time to mow all of this down and send it into our hopper system. And you can see that my repeaters, for the most part, are kind of all the same. But if we come over to right here, over there, and over here, you can see that they're set up differently. And I'll break the machine if I don't stop this. Okay, so what ends up happening here is repeaters are clickable. So you can have 1, 2, 3, right, 4 different states. And depending on how many clicks you put in, causes your redstone signal to move at a different speed through the system as a whole. So a couple of these are set to longer times to slow this signal down, which lets me time everything to get everything going. And I was like, okay, this is a lot simpler. This is easy. I can tell you what the timings are. I can tell you how to set this up. Not a big deal. And we'll just stand here. If you're looking at it, boom, and boom. Just copy it so it looks exactly the same as I have here, and this will work for you. The repeater down here is just an extender, I believe. No, I do have these on opposite timings. So that this times correctly. Okay, so you can build this one if you want. You're just going to have to go through the video a couple times. And then I got to thinking, wait a minute, beginner's series. Like, really? This is complicated redstone for most people. So we're not going to do that either. So I then started thinking about old school Minecraft back in the day and how some things worked. Now, we used to use something, in fact, some people still do, called a flour shaker. And a flour shaker would work very simply. You'd put down a bunch of dirt with a dispenser system under it, like we've been doing over there, and you would hook up some pistons. Now, this might get a little loud, so I'll give you just a moment to turn your volume down just a touch. All right, so now I flip my switch, and you can see it sends this back and forth. And if I put bone meal up through the bottom of this, assuming that it's something that you can grow plants on, granted it's not one of those, it will go back and forth, it will bone meal, and then it will move, which will break all of the stuff that grew on top of it. Go away. Go away. And these do require a little bit of time. You can literally fiddle around with them, though, and get them to work. If you've got them timed drawn, let's see. Yeah, you'll end up with something like that. And you can literally just kind of come in, and there we go. We got it timed again. Right? So these can get a little bit touchy at times. But the timing is nothing compared to that guy. So I then came over and I made a larger one. And the timing on this actually is 1 tick off on each of these, which gives me this back and forth. The bigger you make this, you have to change the timings. And there is a limit. I believe the push limit on these blocks is 7 or 8 long is the longest that you can do this with these pistons. So anyway, so I set this up, made sure I remembered how it worked. A long time ago, we used a different clock. Observers are relatively new to Minecraft. I mean, they're old at this point, but compared to a lot of other things, they're fairly new in Redstone. So I was like, okay, cool. Which brings us to the flour shaker. Okay, and we'll just see it in action here. Now, I'm powering this off of one side of my observer clock, which is then going into this. Having this one tick here means that these are moving just a little out of sync for my pistons by one tick. So one side pushes and then the other side updates and pushes. And as you can see, just running it for a minute, I've got all kinds of seeds and flowers. This is a really good way to collect a bunch of stuff if you have a need of it for some reason. All right, so the same design, and I am running my um, bone meal dispenser off of this same redstone line. So it's one redstone line with a slight delay on one side, which gets us going. And now, boom, I've got this going for days. Now, I don't have a collection system on here, but I can literally just hop up, run around, collect my items real quick, go into my inventory, and throw out whatever I want, or throw it in a composter, whatever the case may be. And I've got all of this. And all I have to do on this one to change from getting my crimson to my warped fungus is change these crimson nylium over to the warped nylium block, and it'll automatically work the way that I want it to, and I get all of the resource that I want. And out of all of these, even though that one's the coolest, that one's my favorite, I love it, this one is actually the fastest. So, well, let's just watch it in all its glory for a few minutes. Get back here so it's not so loud. And that works out really well. Oh, it's out of bone meal. It goes through bone meal really fast. So if you don't have industrial levels of bone meal and you need a lot of this stuff, you're probably going to need to find a way to get a lot of bone meal. Now, there is one other farm that I just sidestepped. Okay? This one uses an etho hopper clock. And it powers your lines separately there. Another line comes down here and powers our dispenser. This one's really slow, but if I just wanted to make sure I had stuff over a really long period of time, I can set up this guy and, he's locked himself somehow. Let's do half a stack. There we go. Ugh. There we go. So, yeah, sometimes the stack size you have in here can cause problems with different things. But anyway, so it's slow, it's reliable, it only collects a couple. I could put, like hopper mine carts underneath, and it'd come pick everything up and all that, just like we have with our melon farm right now, and what we'll have with our bamboo and sugarcane farm. And this will just collect a lot over, or a little over a long period of time, which becomes a lot. And that, would probably suit our needs, but it's also running all the time, and I'd have to wait for it, and, it's just, I'm not interested in waiting, which is why I built this in the first place. All right, let's see how fast this thing actually eats up bone meal. So I decided, even though that one's passive and I don't have to think about it and worry about it, that I wasn't going to use it either. And once again, it's a little bit more complicated on the redstone. Timing the hopper clock and making sure everything's working the way you want it to. It's a thing. It can be done. And there's 3 stacks in that guy right now. So, and I've already built this on my survival world. I've collected up about 9 stacks of these crimson fungus, and I'm gonna get myself an entire chest of the fungus, and then switch over to the warped fungus, get myself an entire chest of that, so that I can continue to grow my nether trees and collect the wood. But that brings us to another problem. You see, mining it by hand, well, it's not fun. And I almost started to make a farm that would collect all this, and then it would plant my trees for me and grow them up really big. And then I was going to use TNT to blow the trees up into a collection system so that I had a fully automatic farm. And as I was about to start designing that, I was like, wait a minute. This is a beginner series. And that is some very advanced redstone. It's definitely not the most advanced redstone that has ever existed, but it's up there. So I said, you know what? No. Yep, and we're completely out. I am not going to design that system at this time. And, but you can see so many items off of just those 3 stacks of bone meal. But I'm not going to design that whole system at this time and take us to instant wood forever as long as we could possibly need. So what we're going to do instead is tomorrow we're going to the Nether. And we're going to do the easy thing that everyone can do to speed up their resource harvesting. We're going to try. The loot table being what it is, I might not be able to get everything that I need to make this, but we're going to try. I'm going back to the Nether. We're going to explore that Nether fortress properly and fully for more than just those blaze rods that I collected previously. And we're going to talk about everything in it, how it works, things to look out for, and hopefully get ourselves 3 Nether skulls. And if we can get those, or not Nether skull, withered skeleton skulls, and if we can get those 3, we can then summon the Wither, which drops an item which will let me make a beacon, which will then let us harvest all of our stuff a lot faster. It's still going to be manual and it's still going to be back and forth, but that's fine. That's fine. That's what we're here for. We're here to enjoy the whole game all the way through. If I just wanted to have absolutely every item on demand and build pretty things all the time, I literally have the entire creative menu in creative mode. So I can just come over here and I could build to my heart's content and have all the pretty things ever. But it's not the same. The thing with survival is figuring out how to get all the stuff and set it up in such a way that you can do it all, eventually. And you're playing a survival game. You want to live, you want to make sure that you're, not dying, not losing stuff all the time, and you want the challenge. You just don't want everything instantly. So we're not going to do instant, at least not yet. I plan to continue this beginner series for a long time to come. Um, as we get some of our builds done and we start doing everything else, which will then let us build everything up the way, for the most part, that the game intended. Now, granted, because of how much bone I needed, the giant bone meal collector is it's a little bit nuts, and that is getting close to end game. But I'm willing to do that once, maybe even twice, but not for everything, not yet. We'll take this world there eventually, someday. But for now, I've actually already got this built for all of this in the survival world, and I'll be using it to collect what I need. But otherwise, I hope that you learned something today. You found something useful. If you need further explanation on any of this, please feel free to leave a comment. I am happy to explain what I know. I am not the world's best redstoner, but I'm passable most of the time. So we can try and help you out, figure all this stuff out, and get you going on the redstone front, which is where a lot of your powerful automation really comes from. Um, but with that, I do appreciate you taking the time to show up, watch my videos. If you're planning on coming back, like I always say, I'd love to see some more subscribers. But with that, it has been kind of a fun day, even if it was not insanely productive. And I hope that you will join me for another day tomorrow in our next video.